We start with something good for you. Support comes from ZBiotics. I have to tell you about this game-changing product that I use before a night out with drinks. It's called pre-alcohol. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol turns into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It is that buildup, it's not dehydration, that makes you feel like you got hit by a truck the next day. So here's my story. The first time I tried ZBiotics was before a friend's birthday dinner, cocktails, wine, you name it. Normally, the next morning, I'd feel like I ran a marathon in my sleep. But this time, I woke up early, had my coffee, went for, a nice walk, and I was shocked. So make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, and you can feel your best tomorrow. So go to zbiotics.com/lemon for 15% off of your first order with code LEMON, that's LEMON. It's backed by a 100% money back guarantee. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know that we are a little early, shocking, right? But we start with breaking news this morning. As you can see, they are assembling a press conference, a news conference in Utah right now with the FBI and many of the agents involved. Okay, so involved in the Charlie Kirk shooting, the Charlie Kirk killing. And so you see the officials there getting ready. They had promised this press conference at the top of the hour, meaning an hour ago, and then they moved it back. And as you know, they also moved back a press conference yesterday. But I want to tell you what we're hearing. We're hearing that the suspect has been caught. We have the suspect's name. It is a 22-year-old Utah resident. That is according to reports. And there's a name of the suspect. I want to wait till the press conference to give it to you. Hopefully they will start soon, but if they don't, suspect Charlie Kirk's identified. That's according to sources. So NBC News is a legit source. So let's go through. We'll tell you what NBC News is saying. NBC News is saying that the identified suspect is reportedly Tyler Robinson, who's 22 years old. We're getting the preliminary information from NBC News. Also, there are other reports from different news organizations. According to law enforcement sources, he was taken into custody as the alleged assassin, they're calling him, who killed Kirk at a rally at Utah Valley University on Wednesday. Apparently, he confessed to his father, okay? And then his father held him there for a while and then waited for authorities to come. How are we getting this information as we go back to this news conference and waiting? Some of this information came in from the highest source in the land this morning, and that was Donald Trump on Fox and Friends. We'll keep the picture of the press conference up, and also you're going to see Donald Trump on Fox and Friends announcing what he believes to be a suspect in custody. Here it is.
Yesterday, you were at the 9/11 memorial. We were all watching that. And J.D. Vance was supposed to be with you. He went out to be with Charlie Kirk's family and to get the body back to his hometown in Arizona. And you said you were going to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is very nice of you. Any updates on this suspect?
Yeah. Can I always say, I think, just to protect us all, and so Fox doesn't get sued, and we all don't get sued, and everything else. But I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. Getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. It's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But, I think we're in great shape.
Mr. President,
and he's in custody.
Your suspicion was that he was radical left, and now you have more information. What can you share with us about his ideology?
Yeah, Lawrence, let me just, and by the way, Lawrence is doing a good job. What's going on here?
Mr.
I'll tell you what, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
I said you were going to do well. Yeah, I think that I don't want to go too far. I'd like to tell you some stories at how it happened, but essentially somebody that was very close to him turned him in. And that happens when you had some of those good shots. Somebody is going to say, whether it's a parent or whatever, I'd rather not say right now. They're going to announce it today, sometime later, probably talk about that. But somebody close to him turned him, they said, whoa. It's interesting where we had very good pictures, but not great, not perfect. And when you look at it, what happened is somebody, and this happens a lot. It happened with the crazy Boston bomber. It happened with others. Somebody that's close recognizes even a little tilt of the head, which nobody else would do. And somebody that was very close to him said, that's him. And essentially went to the father, went to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, by the way. And the person was involved with law enforcement, but was a person of faith, a minister. And brought him to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic. And the father convinced the son, this is it. And again, I'm always subject to be corrected, but I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. As I'm walking in, they said, looking real good. They have the person that they wanted. So you have breaking news, don't you, huh?
Thank you.
You always have breaking news, Ainsley.
Right.
Sean's going to be very disappointed that we're not doing it on his show.
He'll be very thankful and appreciative of the police officers that got this guy.
They did a great job, everybody worked together. Pam Bondi is incredible, by the way. People don't know what a star she is. She's incredible. And it all worked out.
Could I ask you just some clarification? So a pastor was able to turn him in, or they got the family of the shooter to turn them in?
Well, it was a minister, and the minister went to a minister who was involved with law enforcement, by the way. And his good friend is a top U.S. Marshal. And they took it from there. And then it was a father got involved, namely his father, and said, we got to go in. And they, so I understand it. And again, subject to change. But, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for. But they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now.
Did the father know about what the son had done?
I don't know. I'm going to let you get all those questions later, because I can't tell you how accurate. The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian.
Okay, so that was this morning. He announced it on Fox News before officials could announce it. Basically saying he didn't want to announce it while announcing it, but not giving specific details. So right now we're looking, again, as I said, at a live press conference about to happen in Utah, where we're going to get all the details on what the president announced this morning. You see some of the officials gathering there, the reporters and the producers who are in the room. As you saw the press conference last night, FBI Director Kash Patel was there with members of the local FBI, and also federal and state and local law enforcement, all working on this story. We have a guest this morning we're going to talk to about the ramifications of this in society, and that is Pastor Jamal Bryant, as we await this press conference. And Pastor, I just want to get to you because this is a very critical time in our country as we await these details, and I'm hoping that there is peace. No one, I'm sure you may agree with this, I don't want to put words in your mouth, no one agrees that anyone should die because of their political beliefs. Political violence is never acceptable, but we have to remember, who the person was, because to many of us, it was antithetical to our own existence as a human being and the people of God.
Yeah, but violence is never the answer. I just want to remind Americans, as they champion freedom of speech, it was because of a difference of opinion that Dr. King was assassinated, that Medgar Evers was assassinated, that Malcolm X was assassinated. And so Ecclesiastes says that nothing new is under the sun. And so we grieve for his wife and for his two children. But I think that we have to have a real candid conversation about what freedom of speech means for marginalized people.
I agree with Pastor as we get ready for this press conference, and it looks like the officials are walking up now. And they're announcing now. Let's listen.
At today's press conference, we will hear from Governor Cox, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. We also have with us Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles, and local and federal law enforcement partners. Following the remarks today, Governor Cox, Director Patel, and Commissioner Mason will take questions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I'll share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital OWO, what's this?" ? Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist!" ! Catch! Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao," and a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who has worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah. But I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I'll now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play. We will play that role, and we will lead after the federal government. Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilized these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where, at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. in less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly, and I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver it to Governor Cox and his team. Last night we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI. And we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great, and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake field office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions, and we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you, and good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you, everybody, for everybody that has stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youth. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I hoped for. Just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. Because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. God, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. He said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He said, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And Hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country, and I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Governor, can you please speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson, when he turned himself in?
I cannot speak to that.
Governor, how do you interpret his motivation? Governor, how do you interpret the engravings on the case of
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. I think that speaks for itself.
Governor, so you talked about this level of hatred that this person expressed at a dinner. Beyond that, is there anything in your view that you've discovered that may have radicalized or changed him to prompt him to commit such a horrific act?
There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating with a friend on Discord about the gun. Do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests.
Do you believe he acted alone?
Yes, but the investigation is ongoing.
Can you talk more about the family, what they had to say about the suspect?
How he came into custody of police and where he is right now with drugs?
Yes, so right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. Those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southernmost, southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him.
Is he talking more about what the family is saying about Tyler Robinson?
I can't share any more than what I've already shared.
Is he talking
Governor,
with
do you have
authorities?
details on how he got back to Washington County and how the gun was obtained?
So, how we obtained the gun? The gun was found.
No, how the
was found
shooter obtained the gun and how the shooter then was able to get back to Washington.
So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities and did he discuss a motive?
I'm sorry?
Did the suspect plan to carry out any other attacks?
We don't have any information that
Are you
will
going to be releasing the mugshot?
Yes, in fact, it was just released.
Is
yes.
he talking with authorities and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now.
Well, can you clarify? You've spoken very eloquently about trying to reunite this country. Do you feel that this is a watershed in American history?
I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history, yes. The question is what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together, the Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion tonight, last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be, I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. This is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m., the timeline that Director Patel gave us, led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection between those two events?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct.
Could you just clarify this?
Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here.
You said that the suspect was from Utah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at this university, and is there any history of mental illness?
Yeah. So I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I would just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so that is a press conference. You heard all of it. You got all of the live breaking news here on the Don Lemon channel, the Don Lemon Show. This morning, that is our hot topic. Charlie Kirk's killer has been caught. An interesting way in which he was caught. I'm going to bring my law enforcement and military analysts. Also, our Washington correspondent, Jolly, is here. Michael Fanone is here, law enforcement expert. So, gentlemen, thank you both for joining this morning. I'm going to get your thoughts on this press conference, but this is what I want clarity about quickly. I want to alert the viewers about this. They said that he arrived on the campus of Utah Valley University on Tuesday at 8:29 a.m., that he was in a gray Dodge Challenger. He was wearing a plain maroon t-shirt, light colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, as seen on the surveillance video. And then the investigators approached the suspect this morning. They said he was wearing a similar outfit. Messages from the shooting suspect later reviewed by investigators indicated that he had changed outfits. Okay, the part that I want to discuss, gentlemen, is about the family member and how they caught them, because I don't believe, who knows, that we would be here right now if it were not for a family member. Investigators interviewed a member of the man's family who said he had become more political in recent years. The person said Robinson, his name is Tyler Robinson, he's 22 years old, had recently told them that Kirk was coming to UVU, and the pair discussed how they didn't like Kirk and the viewpoints he held. Officials also interviewed Robinson's roommate, who showed investigators a number of Discord messages from the suspect, including one that said he needed to get a rifle from a drop point, and another about leaving that rifle in a bush. There were also messages that referred to the suspect watching the spot where he had left the rifle after Kirk's shooting and that the rifle was wrapped in a towel, which is how officials found it yesterday. Cox said a family member of Robinson reached out to the family friend last night and then contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had either confessed or implied that he had carried out Wednesday's shooting. Now, you guys have been listening to this press conference very closely. I wanted to get the details. I was a little bit confused. Was it a marshal, as President Trump said this morning on Fox? Was it a family friend? What is it, his dad? Michael Fanone, what did you gather from that press conference, and what clarity can you give us? You're muted. Mike, you're muted. Still muted. Let's see now. Are you there? Yeah, I think you probably need to drop the AirPods. They're not working for you. Jolly, until he fixes that, I'll get you.
Sure.
Jolly, what did you gather from this press conference?
There's a lot, obviously, to unpack from the press conference. From this guy white-splaining America to us is a conversation we can have in a minute. But for as far as this whole scenario surrounding the shooter being caught, I mean, I'm not getting comfortable feelings, to be frank with you. Something smells. So we have all this, law enforcement effort being put into catching the guy. And I realize, like, even with all the law enforcement effort, it's not easy and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, with this amount of attention from the president of the United States to the FBI is on it. The FBI director himself is on the ground. The vice president's flying the body on Air Force Two. And the way that he gets caught is a family member turned him in. He confessed to a family member. So essentially, I put a video up yesterday saying they're not going to catch this guy because they can't. I was right. They couldn't catch him. A family member. So that doesn't add up. Additionally, what you were just talking about from the press conference is they immediately wanted to highlight, he didn't like Kirk's political views. I think that there needs to be, a lot more information provided on that rather than micro-dosing it, especially in this current political environment. So once again, it's just feeding into the already existing rhetoric rather than bringing the temperature down a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I concur. I mean, the first thing that that stuck out to me when I hopped on to see that interview was the fact that you have officials really speculating as to the motivation, of the shooter, which is not something that you would typically hear from officials at a press conference like this. I mean, typically law enforcement officials are going to give you a very sterile accounting of
Mike, that's his mugshot, by the way. This is new information. Go on.
Yeah, a sterile account of what they know, and given the climate that we are in right now, that has been, we have heard some pretty incendiary statements from elected officials about this event, placing blame on specific, whether it's the media or left-wing rhetoric. The fact that they would even include that as part of this press conference, to me, like Jolly said, is just further adding to that incendiary rhetoric.
Did you get? I was listening, trying to take notes, and making sure that we had all the information. And so I was listening with one ear and working as well. Did you hear any specific, concrete questions or information, answers from them about the motivation here, except for we had a conversation in a restaurant or whatever it was, and he didn't like Charlie Kirk?
No, not at all. I mean, that was the only statement that I heard. And again, I think that's I would describe it as reckless,
irresponsible, straight up.
To say something like that, based purely off of a speculative account of a conversation, to use that again, these are people of authority. These are people who are speaking on this with a level of at least perceived credibility. To say something like that is only further creating a culture of violence, further propagating violence, retribution, so to speak. And I find it incredibly reckless and that's why in years past, law enforcement officials would not incorporate those types of statements in their description or providing information to the public.
I mean, it's literally irresponsible. So, like, real quick, honest to goodness, because my family, there's a lot of members of my family who are conservative, a lot of members of my family who are MAGA. And if you were to ask my family members about some of my viewpoints, I promise you that their description of it would be a misrepresentation of my actual viewpoint, because we know how this goes. We live, all of us having this conversation and all of us listening to this conversation live in the politically divisive environment that America currently is in. And we all know, if I say, like the other day, I said January 6th was an insurrection. Somebody says, also, you hate January 6ers. Whether or not that's true is of no consequence. I didn't say that. That was your representation of what I said. And so what we're hearing is a family member who very well could have conservative or even extreme conservative, MAGA-leaning values, interpreting what this guy said. And then, like Michael said, for them to include that into the press conference is absolutely reckless. Is a great word, because that's what it was. And what they didn't, include in the press conference, Don? They didn't come out and say, attention, attention. This was not a trans person. This was not a queer person. This was not, a black person, because I mean HBCUs have been getting threatened since this happened yesterday or the day before. So why are we not clarifying all the things that this cishet white man is not, while microdosing in these political motivations that haven't even been sussed out yet?
Yeah, and Don, I think you were getting at this. There's two things here. You have one, law enforcement agencies are supposed to deal in facts and facts alone. They're only supposed to provide information to the public that is supported in, concrete evidence, not in, conversational, speculation on the part of a family member or someone else. And listen, I'm not dismissing. It very well may be that some of Charlie Kirk's viewpoints inspired this 22-year-old Utah resident to commit the act, to commit murder. That very well may be the case. However, one, they didn't provide any type of concrete evidence other than speculating based off of a conversation from a family member, which to me, like I said before, it's irregular. It's not something that you see from traditional law enforcement in their conveying of facts. And it was interesting that while several members of this press conference were calling for calm and calling for people to be peaceful, they were in fact feeding into narrative that the shooter was in fact and that's why I find all of those statements to be so disingenuous. I think they're saying what they need to say to come across as legitimate, knowing full well that, the social media and some of their supporters who are predisposed to violence will take it from there.
Yeah. I also want to point out something that bothered me. This bothered me deep within my soul. This guy, which, by the way, Don, who was the guy talking? Was that the Utah governor or something? Or who was this guy talking?
That was, Spencer Cox, the governor.
Okay,
I was going to get to his statements, but go on.
Well, based on the way he was talking, I was assuming he was the governor. He says, I want you to, this is almost verbatim what he said, but obviously I'm summarizing. He says, I want you to look how Utahns responded. No rioting, no looting, no burning down cars. This is what he says. Why? Why did he use that language? Why was that necessary to point out? Um, but because this is very specific, targeted language that is designed to feed into a political narrative. Right? Yeah. No, we know that white people in Utah, when a white guy was shot by a white guy, did not riot and loot because also they know that that white guy that shot the white guy is going to get justice. They know that he's going to be charged. They know that the law is going to work on their side. They know that the system that was established by white people will make sure that white people pay for the price of what white people do, right? So they'll just wait it out until they get their white justice. Yeah, we know that. But you chose the language, the underlying message he was saying is, see, we're not like them. We're better than them. And then microdosing in this political motivation. Like Michael said, in any other press conference you've ever watched, they would say, we have we're investigating the motivation. We've got some information. We're going to, dig deeper into that. Something, they're not going to just tell you what it is, but they told you on purpose. And then they threw in this rioting and looting dog whistle to further turn the temperature up. I honestly, Don, that press conference makes me more concerned about what's to come than it did the opposite.
Well, here's a couple of things. I'm wondering, because I had Pastor Jamal Bryant on before, and unfortunately his time with us was short because of the press conference, and he talked about having empathy and sympathy and all of those things that good human beings discuss and want to have, especially when something like this happens. But he went on to say, but we have to realize the damage that Charlie Kirk did to minorities in this country, and that includes members of the LGBTQ community, immigrants, Black people, women, all of that. Okay, so we have to be cognizant of that. I am wondering. You can be, upset that this happened and sad that it happened and say it did not happen, but why are our officials deifying someone who espoused what I believe as a believer and a Christian to be anti-Christian values about loving thy neighbor and the least of these? And
Don, I'm going to tell you exactly what I told you offline. They're deifying him because to them he is a deity.
Go on. What do you mean?
What is that? I think because he was espousing and normalizing these hateful, bigoted viewpoints. I'll listen. I am every once in a while I'll dip my toes into legacy or mainstream media just to kind of get a temperature of what's happening and how they're covering certain stories. I can tell you that after this story, I am done. And the reason behind that is I listened to MSNBC and CNN talk about Mr. Kirk as though he was a staunch advocate for nonviolence and a huge proponent of the First Amendment. Let me be clear. The things that Mr. Kirk espoused were racist, bigoted, divisive, hateful, hurtful ideas and ideology. He was not a proponent of the First Amendment other than his own right to express those hateful, bigoted viewpoints. He created these viral moments in which he used, I'm just going to say, archaic ideas rooted in the same racist, bigoted viewpoints that we've heard time and time again from his own mouth. and, essentially went after 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids at universities. It really is disgusting
But
to see that, and then to see this administration embrace him as if he was anything other than, what I just described. I mean, yes, what happened to him is a tragedy. And, again, as if I need to say it one more time, violence is never the answer. But let's not describe this person as anything other than, who he was and what he was and the destruction that he caused in this country in creating the divisive moment, which ultimately led to his own demise.
But also, let's take it one step further, really quick, because I want to really like add a layer to what you're saying, Michael. When you guys are talking about the hateful rhetoric that Charlie Kirk used and why he's being deified and why white America coalesced around his language so much, because he was not just using hateful rhetoric or random hateful rhetoric. What Charlie Kirk was 100% doing was saying the things that the rest of white America was saying behind closed doors. Charlie Kirk was saying it out in public. They deified him because they looked at him as the guy who had the strength to finally speak up for white America, for the things that's already been said behind closed doors. He didn't come up with some new ideas or some new hateful bigotry. The one thing you're always going to find about bigotry is the uncreative mediocrity of it all. Bigotry is never that creative. It's always the same recycled bullshit. The difference between a bigot and a parrot is one of them has a small brain and just repeats what they hear around them and has no original thoughts. The other one's a bird. And so you're never going to hear a bigot with new ideas. So what Charlie Kirk was saying was what was already being said. He just chose to say it out loud and unapologetically in public, which gave racist, hateful white people the fervor they need to come out and say, yes, we can finally be bigots in public and you can't stop us. And you mentioned, Don, that how can they deify him and talk about Jesus? The Jesus you're referring to and the Jesus they're referring to are different Jesus. You see, they made Jesus white, brother. Never forget that. So their Jim Crow Jesus is a little bit different. And so the same thing Donald Trump did to get all these votes from these white people was just say out loud what they were already saying behind closed doors. This is a part of the conversation we must include and quit acting like that Charlie Kirk was this one-off guy with some really bigoted, hateful ideas. No, he was just saying what everybody else wouldn't say publicly.
Mm-hmm. According to the Wall Street Journal, which so I guess maybe you can take it with a grain of salt. I take everything with a grain of salt, no matter how legit the news organization is. And Wall Street Journal is a legit news organization. But it says Kirk shooting suspect Tyler Robinson has registered as nonpartisan voter. The records show the suspect in the assassination of a conservative activist and influencer, Charlie Kirk, has in the past registered as nonpartisan voter in Utah. Records show Tyler Robinson, 22, has two parents registered as Republicans. Roughly half of Utah voters are Republicans, while about a quarter are unaffiliated voters. There are reports and things circulating around social media and online and also in media as well that he was possibly a Trump supporter and may have donated. And again, I can tell you that is just what's floating around. That has not been confirmed. But if the Wall Street Journal is looking at records, so he's unaffiliated, but both of his parents are registered Republicans. So where does the liberal Democrat, Nancy Mace and others, Jesse Waters,
Don,
where does that come from?
Because that's the narrative that most benefits them politically, and so that's the narrative they're going to go with. I mean,
Yep.
Don, you're not naive, brother. Like we have long since abandoned, fact-based, we live in reality. They live in a, alternate reality that is not rooted in facts. It's simply whatever is politically advantageous to them, that's what they're going to go with. And so for Nancy Mace, for people like Derek Van Orn, what is, politically advantageous in this moment is to create this narrative. Obviously, hey, listen, Republicans have not been doing very well when it comes to governing. And a lot of Americans are starting to wake up to that. So here's an issue that they can use to rally their base to get behind the they argument. They are attacking us. They are coming for us. Forget about, the fact that you lost your job or that you can't pay your bills. They murdered Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk was one of us, and we've got to get retribution.
Bingo.
And so that's, that's why you're seeing this. And, the other thing is, part of the motivation here is we know that, by stirring this in our base, that our base is inevitably going to go out and commit acts of violence. They're going to threaten people like Don Lemon. They're going to threaten people like Jolly. They're going to threaten people like Mike Fanone. And maybe they'll do it and it'll get them to shut the F up. And that's a big part of it. And if not people like us, at least people in their community that, were upset about what was happening and were willing to, to speak out about it. And so that's a big component of this, is to instill fear in the opposition, the fear of retribution.
If you're joining us right now, I just want to update that I know some folks are watching us live, so this is my old school legacy media thing. Look, it's the top of the hour. It's 11 o'clock Eastern time here on the East Coast, and we're following the developments in Charlie Kirk's shooter. Killer has been caught. His name is Tyler Robinson. He is a 22-year-old. I think he's a former student of the university. This is his mugshot. Apparently, they caught him last night with the help of some family members and friends, conversations. And this morning, there was a press conference that happened just a short time ago. So that's the very latest here. Gentlemen, if you will both just indulge me here, I need to take 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Kash Patel. What is he doing there and why? Anyway, we'll discuss. But first, here's a word from our sponsors.
Support comes from Wild Alaskan Company. Now, when was the last time that you truly trusted the seafood that you brought home? I used to question everything: nutrition, taste, sustainability, until I found Wild Alaskan Company. Now, their seafood is 100% wild caught, never farmed, no antibiotics, no GMOs, no additives, just clean, real fish packed with omega-3s, frozen right off the boat to lock in freshness. Now, I personally love their sockeye salmon. I say it all the time. I love all of it though, right? And it's all rich in flavor. It's got great texture, and I know it supports sustainable fishing practices. And you can try it risk-free. If you're not completely satisfied, they're going to give you a full refund. So get $35 off of your first box of premium wild-caught seafood at wildalaskan.com/lemon. That's wildalaskan.com/lemon. Eat better, support healthy oceans. It's Wild Alaskan. Support comes from Beam. Summer's almost over. We're quickly moving into fall, but let's be honest. Life hasn't slowed down. The headlines keep coming, the noise gets louder, and every day someone is trying to distract us, divide us, or just wear us down. It is unrelenting, right? So that's not an accident. Burnout is the goal. If we're exhausted, we're easier to control. But rest is resistance. That's why I use Beam's Dream Powder. It's a natural sleep blend with ingredients like reishi, magnesium L-theanine, and apigenin, and melatonin. It helps us to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up clear-headed, without the grogginess or the crash. Since I started using it, I have felt sharper, more grounded, ready to show up for the day ahead, and I'm not alone. Beam's Dream Powder has improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep all across the country. So it tastes great. tastes incredible. It's smooth. It's delicious. Easy to add to your nightly routine. Right now, Beam is offering up to 40% off of their best-selling Dream Powder. For my listeners, go to shopbeam.com/lemon and use the code LEMON. That's shopbeam.com/lemon for up to 40% off. I want you to sleep well, wake up ready. The fight continues.
All right, and thanks to our sponsors. So here's my question. So I watched Kash Patel this morning at this press conference, and I'm like, why is he telling? We applied this much assets. We did air the whatever coverage, and I'm like, okay, Kash, like what? I don't know. Maybe it's routine for people to just pat themselves on the back, but yeah, I wanted some information and not, just touting and patting the FBI on the back. I'm sorry.
Because Don,
Michael, if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. This is very important to me. I'm glad you brought this exact question up. Because he failed. Because Kash Patel's first big job as the FBI director, the first time where he really was like in the spotlight, he failed. We need to all of us need to make sure we flood social media. When I'm done with this, I'm gonna make a video saying this so we can flood social media that everyone knows Kash Patel's FBI failed and failed miserably. Does anybody remember the night after that first night after the shooting where Kash Patel's telling everyone, we got the suspect, killer in custody? Oh, by the way, it was a gentleman with a name that sounds like he may be Muslim. And, they just wrongly told everybody that it was him to, stoke the fires of Islamophobia without actually being correct. And he was wrong. And that was the second time he had been wrong. The first picture that was floating around that we arrested a guy, it was wrong too. Kash Patel and the FBI failed. They failed at this. They spent all this money, all this time, and all these resources. And I don't like when we say he got caught. The killer didn't get caught. He got turned in. They failed.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, this may come as a surprise to many Americans, probably not in the Lemon Nation, but Kash Patel is way out of his depth. He is a conspiracy theorist and a podcaster who is now the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Kash Patel is a moron. Kash Patel was real-time tweeting the investigation, which is incredibly reckless. And not only is it reckless because he shouldn't be discussing the status of the investigation through Twitter or X, but he was wrong. Like Jolly pointed out, he was wrong twice. And so this was a bungled investigation. I know there was a lot of reporting as to the status of the Utah field office in that its most senior investigator, the head of the office, had been fired recently because she was, in their words, there were loyalty questions to the president of the United States. It's clear to me that the FBI has been gutted of all of its quality investigators. While there may be some rank and file left, the leadership there is questionable at best. But I certainly have no faith in FBI's leadership. If the only qualification is a loyalty test to the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. Again, it's worth repeating. The FBI did not catch the shooter. He was turned in by family members. And so, Kash Patel could sit there and talk about all the resources that were brought to bear. To me, as a former law enforcement officer, it's embarrassing because
thank you.
Despite the fact that he brought all these resources to bear, they still couldn't catch the guy. He had to be turned in by his dad and another friend or a family member.
Mm-hmm. It just made him look dumb.
Yeah.
So the fact that he looks dumb is, he's not an intelligent person.
Well, last night during the press conference, he didn't even speak. And I'm like, well, why is he there? He's just standing there looking off in the distance And so I was like, I have no idea why he's there.
Because he never misses an opportunity to be in front of the camera.
Yeah. And then they held
Also,
a press conference for him to land and for other officials to land last night. And as I was, speaking to some of the law enforcement people, former FBI folks I know, they were saying they should have held a press conference anyway. It is crucial to have those press conferences so that you can alert people, you can get tips, whatever. Waiting for the head of the FBI to land, okay, that's some bullshit. It's ego. And then today, when he got up there, he just talked about all the resources and thanked people. And then I guess he forgot someone. He had to come back and kiss somebody else's ass. I'm like, why is he even there? What is he talking about? No one gives a shit about that. And perhaps he has to say that because of the reports that you said, Michael. If you go, all you have to do is go and do a search and you'll see what's happening with the Utah FBI. And the most glaring part is that usually the FBI, the head of the FBI, what do you call the guy? I forget what they call it. The
director?
Usually there's the regional person is I forget what they call him. I used to work with the FBI and local all the time.
Special agent in charge.
Yep, usually the special agent, thank you, Michael, the special agent in charge leads those press conferences.
Yes.
The governor was leading the press conferences.
Yep.
There was no special agent in charge leading. So what does that say? They stripped the agency of institutional knowledge and players and professionals who would know how to deal with this and perhaps would have caught this guy very quicker than they did this time. I'm just saying.
And probably wouldn't have endangered the lives of random people when they incorrectly identified them. Let's keep in mind here how dangerous it is during this type of investigation and this type of politically divisive environment that you're just naming random folk and saying that they're the suspect. And then they're going to be out in public while you're waiting to catch the real suspect, endangered by these radical crazies who have already been online saying they're going to seek retribution for them taking Charlie Kirk from us. And you're just a guy. I don't even want to say the guy's name, but the second person that they arrested, it was the middle of the night. They had his face plastered all over social media. Like Michael said, Kash Patel was on fucking X doing this shit play by play when normally the FBI is very tight-lipped in an investigation. I couldn't imagine being an investigator or a detective and every piece of evidence you get, every small break you get, you're turning around and putting it on your social media. This is just, it's embarrassing. I think the right word is embarrassing. It's an embarrassment to the FBI. It's an embarrassment to America's law enforcement community. And it also goes a long way to show what we've all been saying since he made Kash Patel the FBI director, since he made Pete Hegseth the Secretary of Defense, since he made Pam Bondi the Attorney General. These are all DEI hires who are unqualified for the job, who don't know what the fuck they're doing, who are well in over their depth, and they're ineffective. The FBI, as Kash Patel pointed out in today's press conference, spent all this money, time, and resources to absolutely fucking fail.
I want to read this and then put this up. This is from Glenn Thrush, was posted on Twitter. News: Kash Patel slammed agents on Kirk case in a profanity-laced video call, accusing them of keeping info from him. Okay, that's bizarre. Of keeping info from him. It came a day after he wrongly claimed the shooter was caught in a tweet written without telling staff, raising new doubts about his leadership. I mean, this sounds like some Pete Hegseth signal shit to me, right? It's just messed up. And then if you go into the Times story, it says, scrutiny mounts of FBI under Patel as Kirk's killer remains at large. Already a series of missteps by Kash Patel, the FBI director, in recent months have invited worries that he has eroded public confidence in the agency. This is why he was standing up there spouting up all this bullshit about how many jet engines were flying or whatever air assets. On Thursday morning, a day after hastily suggesting the person who gunned down Charlie Kirk was in custody, Kash Patel, the FBI director, convened an online meeting with 200 agents around the country to discuss the manhunt. It was a tense affair. Mr. Patel and his deputy, Dan Bongino, made it clear that they were under intense pressure to catch the killer of Mr. Kirk. They expressed themselves with such fierce urgency that in view of some participants, it hinted at another motive to prove they were up to the task. Boy, oh boy, don't we know about that, Michael, having had some experience with someone who had to do the same thing. Mr. Patel, the director wasted no time before calling out subordinates that he said failed to give him timely information and was incensed that agents in Salt Lake City waited for nearly 12 hours to show him a photo of the suspected killer, according to 3 people familiar on the exchange. Mr. Patel said that he would not tolerate any more Mickey Mouse operations. That's a quote. An official on the call recounted. It was one of his few utterances without profanity, the person added. Talk about DEI hires.
I would imagine that those FBI agents didn't want to share information with the director because
he's incompetent.
They were concerned about the fact that he was real-time tweeting that information just to make himself look good and look like he had some type of control over the situation. I mean, this is a person who is operating this agency with his own ego as his motivating factor.
Correct.
And now a deep desire to prove that he is not in fact incompetent.
Yep.
I want to speak a little bit, Don, to the Utah field office and the fact that we now know that the special agent in charge of that office for a number of years, a career FBI agent, someone who had spent multiple decades within the agency, was fired. And then, obviously this insanity ensues is when they, have a major investigation and undertaking. You don't come out of the FBI Academy knowing how to manage an investigation like this. This is something that takes years and years and years within the agency, conducting investigations, being, a part of investigations, developing relationships. It takes time to create a supervisor who is competent in this type of a scenario. And so you now have Kash Patel, who has never conducted an investigation in his entire life, a criminal investigation, has absolutely no idea what it is that, what it takes to coordinate between multiple law enforcement agencies, how to communicate to the public. And so you have an agency now that is in complete and utter chaos, and that is incapable of handling, whether it's a high profile case such as this, or even low level investigations because of the lack of leadership, which, we should all be reminded was gutted for the sole reason that these agents or these, supervisors refused to pledge allegiance to Donald Trump, many of them having participated in criminal investigations stemming from the insurrection at the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021, were purged from the ranks. And here we are.
Hey guys, I want you to hear this from Donald Trump, okay? And we have more news coming in, but I want you to hear this from Donald Trump. But first, give me 2 minutes and get a word from our sponsors, and then we're going to hear from the president. And I want these guys to respond. Here it is.
Support comes from MSI United States. Now, I read something the other day that really just stopped me cold. It stopped me right in my tracks because the Trump administration is destroying $10 million worth of contraception. Contraception paid for by us, the taxpayers. Meanwhile, 257 million women worldwide want contraception but can't get it because they're poor, they're young, or they live in remote areas. So when women don't have access to contraception, we see more unplanned pregnancies, more unsafe abortions. In many countries, pregnancy is still the #1 killer of young women. MSI Reproductive Choices is changing that. For just $6.50, you can provide a woman with a year of contraception. For $65, you can help 10 women take control of their lives, stay in school, and build healthier families. So please text my last name, Lemon, to 511-511 or go to msius.org. That's msius.org. M for modern, S is for safe, I for informed. And give today. Make a life-changing difference. Support comes from Shopify. Now, this show started as a dream for me, and Shopify turned that dream into a business. Starting your own thing can feel overwhelming. I know it. What if I can't design a website? What if I can't do it alone? Well, Shopify makes it simple. It powers millions of businesses worldwide, 10% of all US e-commerce right here, right? That is Shopify. They've got beautiful templates. They've got AI tools for product images and descriptions and built-in marketing support to help you find customers. So here at the Don Lemon Show, we use Shopify for our merch, the merch that you love and we love. And if you ever get stuck, right, if you're trying to do this, they have 24/7 award-winning customer support. It's always there for you. So turn your what ifs into ka-chings, right? Sign up for a $1 per month at shopify.com/lemon. That's shopify.com/lemon. You start at $1 per month at first and start your dream today. Thanks to all of our sponsors.
To all of our sponsors, we really appreciate it. The sponsors today, I mean, the viewership is amazing. I want to tell you guys this. Please make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Subscriptions are free. Support independent journalism, independent media. Become a member of the Don Lemon channel today. Become a member of the Michael Fanone channel today. Become a member of the Jolly Good Ginger channel today. And follow us all on our socials, which includes Substack as well, and YouTube, and Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok. So thank you so much. Let's talk about the President of the United States. So hopefully that this will work. I think we may be having some audio issues, but we have been talking about, people who are competent, who know what they're doing. By the way, we didn't talk about the president announcing this before the FBI did, which is just crazy, on Fox and Friends, which I shouldn't say Fox News, Fox and Friends, which is entertainment. Crazy. But, we're supposed to be, our leaders are supposed to be de-escalating things, ratcheting them down instead of up, trying to bring the country together. And yet, here's Donald Trump on TV this morning, dividing the country and Americans.
As well, we have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone, they want open borders. The worst thing that happened.
Can we fit any more buzzwords in that one sentence?
I just want to show that from the Anti-Defamation League that we showed yesterday, we've been showing radicals, most of the political violence in this country. Okay, and this is domestic extremism. This is domestic terrorism. It can be portrayed as that. Domestic extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation. This is from 2013 to 2022, and it could be higher than that now that it is 2025. Okay, right-wing extremists are responsible for the great majority, Mr. Donald Trump, president, of extremist-related murders over the last decade. Right-wing extremism, all movements, 75%. Left-wing, are you hearing this? Extremism, including anarchists, black nationalists, 4%. Domestic, again, left-wing, including black people and anarchists, 4%. Fucking idiots. Domestic Islamist extremism, 20%. Miscellaneous, 1%. It is, and we say this all the time, they want transgender accountability. They have black on black crime. It is the lefty loons. You heard what he said. They are vicious and they're the worst. The shooter is a white dude who could be a conservative, who could have supported Donald Trump, whose parents are Republicans, but they're still going to go with this narrative that it is a left-wing extremist. They don't want accountability for right-wing white guy extremists, but they want it for transgender, which is not even mentioned in this because the percentage is so low. Anyway, I'm done. You guys take it away.
There was a second shooting the same day that Charlie Kirk was shot at a Colorado high school, and that shooter was also caught yesterday. Now, any guesses on that shooter's demographic?
It was a
What?
black transgender woman.
Really good guess, Don. Turned out to be a white male.
Oh,
Uh,
no, no
right.
way.
So is that being talked about? No. Is it being talked about that both shooters that conducted school shootings on the same day are both cishet white male? That's not being discussed in the news. But what is being discussed is the president using every buzzword he can think of. He was quickly cycling through his, and he brought up men and women's sports, right? Like right in the middle of talking about shootings. He's like, they also want men and women's sports. Don't forget that. They also want, to burn down cities, just like the Utah governor in his press conference. We weren't out here rioting and looting. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? If these are just buzzwords, divisive rhetoric designed for a golden mine. We all know it is. They know it is. This is the same president, by the way, who owned the campaign trail, said without ambiguity that the enemy is from within. It's the radical leftists, and we will get them out. They are worse than the enemies that are coming in. So he was talking about at the time the border crisis. So he was telling the lady, I forget her name, that he was interviewing with, that the people coming across the border are criminals, but the enemy from within is even worse than that. So is it surprising that they are now ratcheting up the rhetoric that he started on the campaign trail? Not surprising to me.
I mean, there's something else I want to point out too, Don. For the first time in my lifetime, you talked about those statistics. 76% of political violence and in this country is committed by right-wing extremists. 4% is attributed to left-wing extremism. Those left-wing extremists, they operate independent of the Democratic Party. They're not affiliated with the Democratic Party. That 76% of right-wing extremists, they are the military arm of the new Republican Party under the Trump administration. The Trump administration has hired individuals who were present on January 6th and placed them in positions of authority within the Department of Justice, within their administration. People that committed acts of violence that day have been placed into powerful positions within this administration. So these two groups are not independent of one another. It's not the Republican Party and then these right-wing extremists. They are one and the same. And so, of course, Donald Trump and the Department of Justice and the FBI are going to come out and say that, try to propagate some narrative that this person was a left-wing lunatic, because they themselves are an apparatus of right-wing domestic terrorism in this country.
I want Peter. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Peter. This information. Do you want to? Can we talk about this? This whole Groyper thing.
Sure. So
and
nothing
Michael,
has...
you guys, I'm sure Michael and Jolly have some experience with this, but go ahead. Peter's sending me some information because he's doing some online sleuthing and some investigative journalism, so to speak. So, Peter, what are you finding out? And we can put up some of these images if we have them.
We need to be clear that this is a developing story, and we can't speak to this with absolute certainty, but there is an increasing amount of evidence that this individual, the shooter, a suspected shooter in the Kirk case, was perhaps a groyper, was perhaps in some far-right forums and chats online. Evidence of this can be found on some of the messages he included on the bullet casings. Don, I think you have those in your notes if you want to discuss those. And there are also, has now been surfaced a Halloween costume that he wore a number of years ago where he was dressed as a groyper, which for those who aren't familiar is think of the Pepe the Frog meme. It's sort of a humanized version of a frog that is most commonly associated with, again, far-right online white nationalist forums. So all this to say, again, there needs to be more reporting. We need more time to go through all of this, but given the messages inscribed into the bullet casings, given some of these Halloween costumes, given the fact his mother in this one Facebook post literally said that he was dressed up as some strange guy from a meme, and if you look at what a groiper looks like, it's rather clear that's what's going on.
Let's
So,
add some.
sorry, Jolly, go ahead.
No, I want to kind of tie into what you're talking about. Let's add some even further context to this.
Hey, Jolly, 1 second. I know people get mad. I'm not cutting Jolly off. I'm cutting him off because I need to, and then I want him to explain. But I wanted to jump in because Peter mentioned it about the casings. It says one of them was like, "Hey, fascist," and then catch, right? That's a Graper thing, right? If you read this, you are gay, LMAO. Okay, that seems kind of homophobic to me. That doesn't seem like someone who might be trans. I don't know. Or the casings or what they said had trans, anti-fascist trans stuff on it. Notice his bulges, OWO, what's this? And then Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow, Chow. And that was from, that they said what was on the bullet casings. I'm sorry. You have the floor, Jolly. I will not interrupt.
No, it's good. I want to go back to the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, and the guy there, who we know was an outspoken conservative. He also was found to be, please correct me on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right here. He was found to be a Nick Fuentes follower who was also believed to be a groiper. And at the time, Nick Fuentes was having a little back and forth with Donald Trump, and the groiper community really rallies behind, the Nick Fuentes style of white nationalism. And then now we're looking at this, and keep in mind, Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk have been having a little back and forth over the last week or so. Not saying it's at all related. I'm just saying that the idea that he could be a groiper would seem to make sense with what happened even in Butler, Pennsylvania, and now that this could be a very similar community, but it's just something to think about. Obviously, like Peter said, need to dig deeper into it. I'm just trying to recall from what happened then and what happened now, and how there could be some similarities.
Yeah, and that's we look. We can do that here on digital because again, we are telling you that it is not confirmed, but this is what is being alleged and reported, and some of the things that are going around social media, just to give you a fuller picture of everything that's going on. So again, grain of salt. This is just for information purposes, not confirmed. But if you look at the images and you check social media, and you have to remember, I have a member of law enforcement here and a veteran. Law enforcement uses social media as evidence in these cases, right? To gather information, to come to conclusions about a suspect's motivation, et cetera, et cetera. Michael, am I right?
Absolutely. And to give you a little bit of context, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers are like, what the hell are they talking about? The groipers, the groipers are, in fact, a group or a loosely affiliated group that law enforcement recognizes as a part of the alt-right. They espouse white nationalist and Christian nationalist ideology. And like Jolly brought up, one of the most prominent figures in that organization is Nick Fuentes, who is a espoused white supremacist, white nationalist, and a fascist. There were, give a little bit of history in the United States. There were members who were a part of the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. Individuals who were arrested that day, having committed acts of violence, espoused their, affiliation with the Groiper Army. And so this is not just some conspiracy theory, rabbit hole, whatnot. This is an actual loose-knit organization that operates here in the United States. That is affiliated with the alt-right and white supremacist movements in the U.S.
Yep.
Well, and I just want to be very clear about this. Again, this is all information that I'm sure law enforcement is looking at, news organizations are looking at. We saw from the Wall Street Journal his particular political affiliation, which was I think it was a non-registered or whatever, or registered independent somehow. Suspect Tyler has been registered as a nonpartisan voter. That's what the records show. And then if you go further into it, it says he's been registered for a bit, but his parents are both registered Republicans. And so, as we get ready to leave you because we need to get onto some other stuff and I need to let these guys do what they do, I just want to tell you that here we are, 2 days later, they have found the person they believed, and I should have said alleged earlier because I called him a killer or shooter, the alleged shooter, the alleged killer of Charlie Kirk, the far right-wing political activist and the founder of Turning Point USA. The suspect is identified as Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old Utah resident, maybe a former student of the university. The governor explained at a press conference earlier that he was taken into custody as the alleged assassin who killed Kirk at a rally at Utah Valley University. Apparently, he had confessed to his father, Matt, who is a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department. His father then contacted authorities and secured his son before he could be taken into custody. Can you imagine, guys, what would you do in that case with your son?
That don't even want to
you don't even want to think about it, right?
I don't even want to hyperbolically put this in my head. What I want to do with my son, since you asked, is I want to raise my son to, not fall for this type of online radicalization that the right does. What I've told people 1,000 times, I said this in front of the Tops grocery store in Buffalo when the guy there walked in and shot people. They said, oh, he was radicalized online, and that starts. You got to start at home, as in white families, teaching your children that racism is a real thing and that anti-racism is what we have to do. Because if you don't teach anti-racism at home, if we don't make anti-racism more a part of the white community, then whether or not you teach this radical white ideology at home or not, they are going to be open to being radicalized by it because they were never taught anti-racism at home. Now, I'm not saying it's the parents' fault. I'm not blaming it on them. You can't control radicalization. But what I am saying is that the white community has got to get rid of this type of toxic ideology that permeates our community, and we pretend like it doesn't, and we pretend like these are one-offs, and we pretend like this radicalization just happens online, and we pretend like that some of this is not fed by conversations behind closed doors. Before I go off, I'll stop there.
Robinson, just so you know, and I believe, Jolly, just so you know, obviously there's something had to be wrong with this young man. Something was off about him. Something went wrong somewhere, because you just don't do what he did unless you have some sort of issue, which I believe folks need to take care of. The mental health issue and the gun issue. And he should not have had access to guns. Someone around him had to know something, because reportedly he was espousing political views lately, and folks, I guess, perhaps were concerned about him. There's also this thing that's happening in society where people talk about young men, and especially young white men, and how they feel disenfranchised and they feel like the world is against them. And I think Charlie Kirk contributed to that, whether it's real or not. A lot of it is not real for me. I know it's in their heads. I'm just being honest. When you consider many of the people, if not most of them, who have these issues, who complain about that women are taking their jobs, or minorities are taking their jobs, or they can't get along in society, they can't get a date, all of these things, oh my God, they're so oppressed. Many of them are the most privileged people in society. If you go back through the history of some of these people who are, most of them, who commit these acts, they are from privileged backgrounds. Robinson was taken into custody around 11 p.m. local time in southern Utah on Thursday night. He lives in a $600,000 six-bedroom home in Washington, Utah, about 260 miles south of Kirk's assassination in Orem. I'm just saying, something needs to be talked about and discussed and investigated, and I believe Jolly is exactly right. What is going on? What people should be, I think, extremely interested in and trying to figure out is why these young folks, so many of them, were so attracted to Charlie Kirk and what Charlie Kirk had to say. One is because he was on college campuses. I get that. But the things that he espoused, to me, seems to go exactly against what young people stand for and what I see happening with young people now. More diversity, more open to knowing and having friends that are members of the LGBTQ plus community. They don't really care if someone is gay, straight, bi, or whatever. It doesn't matter to them. They don't really care that much on the surface about people from different backgrounds and ethnicities. But for some reason, these folks are attracted to people like Charlie Kirk, who believes and says the most hateful things about minorities, women, etc., who has really just unhinged views of the world.
It's not for some reason. It's hard for me to talk about this summarily, but I'll do my best. It is because of the ideas that are permeated inside the white community. Listen to conversations behind closed white doors about the things that white people say that, oh, by the way, are not new. They're the things that I heard when I was 10 years old. Where there's a war on white people, there's a war on Christianity, there's a war on straight people. I've been hearing this since I was knee high to a grasshopper. I've been told that these are the things that are very true in my community, that these people, talking about anybody who's not white, they just want a handout, they want to live off the system, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's hard for me to talk about this summarily, but when you hear this type of thing tossed around, where you raise that, because you're talking about how Gen Z is more diverse, whatever, they're being raised by my generation who still believes all the same bullshit that I'm talking about right now. And when you hear that your whole life, and by the way, a requirement to be white in America is to not have an identity, because the requirement in white supremacy is the assimilation and the erasure of your identity. And so you got a bunch of kids who don't have an identity, searching for one, who can't. White culture isn't a thing, that was by our own white choices, and so they go out here and they look for an identity in disenfranchisement. That's where they find their identity, because it resonates with what they've heard their parents say, their uncles say, their aunts say, their grandparents say, and it resonates with it. But it takes it a step further, and to them it sounds like a solution to this white disenfranchisement that they've heard about their entire life. This is about, as summarily as I could say it, but I could talk for hours on this subject. But I'm telling you right now, the lack of accountability, the refusal of accountability, the refusal to even admit it's true in the white community is why this type of radicalization has continued and will continue until that changes.
Yeah, I'll say also, Don, one of the reasons that, at least in my mind, that you see a person like Charlie Kirk rise to such prominence is that, in the past, religious leaders, for the most part, politicians, people of influence would have spoken out against the things that Charlie Kirk espoused publicly, for the most part. Now you see in, the president of the United States, in, Republican members of Congress, in religious leaders across the country, a willingness to embrace his ideology because they see it as politically useful. Let's make no mistake about this. This is about creating the next generation of voters for this political movement, for the MAGA political movement. And so, I see that as being, a big part of this, the idea that these ideas are not fringe, bringing them into the mainstream. And Charlie Kirk, was a huge part of that, but it came from these other individuals in positions of authority who were willing to lend their own credibility of their office or their position to a person like Charlie Kirk.
Thank you, gentlemen. I let you guys go on that because you know more than I do. Jolly, you know white culture better than I do, and I can't disagree with you. I thought a lot of that, I would overhear my friends, my white friends' parents, and I would say, okay, well, but I guess that has not gone away, and it will not go away fully. The other thing that I want to show you here is that This is just into the Don Lemon newsroom. If you can put up the latest thing that we just got in. I see you guys working on it in the back. So either the authorities mistook arrows possibly referencing a video game as transgender ideology, or someone deliberately tried to mislead the public and shape the narrative to incite more violence, and the media and right-wing figureheads eagerly went along with it, spreading misinformation and anti-trans hate. Just saying.
Yeah. Par for the course.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll see you later on. Who knows what's going to transpire between now and 5 o'clock, but I really appreciate your support. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your expertise coming on. Follow Mr. Michael Fanone. He has a YouTube channel. He also has Substack, and he's on socials as well. Also follow Mr. Jolly on all the socials. Check out his YouTube page as well. Support independent media, independent journalists, and the folks who are out here trying to tell you the truth without corporate influence, okay? And so if you want to know anything about the Don Lemon Show, go to donlemon.com. This is our website. If you want to know about our main channel, which is YouTube, click on the watch button right at the top right there. It takes you right to the YouTube page. You can subscribe. You can join. Subscriptions are free. If you join, very reasonable. It's way less than you spend on coffee per month, especially Jolly drinks a lot of Starbucks, I'm sure.
I don't drink Starbucks. I do not drink Starbucks. We're boycotting them.
You can go to our store from this page as well. Or what you can do, if you back out to donlemon.com, you can just go click on merch, and it'll take you right to our merch store, because you guys demanded it. I didn't want to do it, but it's selling. That fan is selling like hotcakes. It's crazy. So thank you for your support there. Also back out of that, Andy. And if you want to go and check out our Substack as well, right at the bottom, hit Substack. We're live on that platform right now. And we are also going to post some more stuff there today. So thank you for your support. I'm going to see you back here at 5 p.m. As I always say, you can be informed without being inundated until I see you back here on Lemon live at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Turn the TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next.